Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you're new, please subscribe. So this is a video about my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes. My channel is mainly eyeshadow tutorials. I love all makeup, but eyeshadow is definitely my favorite makeup product to apply, my favorite makeup product to shop for, favorite makeup product to put on other people. So we're just going to jump right into my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes. So number one is Going Coconuts. This is by Colourpop. Very, very popular. I'm going to have linked below all the eyeshadow palettes, and I'm also going to tag playlist of me using these palettes. So this is my Going Coconuts palette. It's well loved. I've dropped it a few times, and these shadows are not even in the right spot. But I love this palette. The outside is wearing off, and I highly recommend this palette. This is a palette too, like if you're not a big makeup wearer, and you like neutral eyeshadows, you need this palette because this is the perfect neutral eyeshadow palette. You would probably use this for going out every day. You need this palette and it's super affordable, and the quality of the eyeshadows in here are amazing. Next, this is a newer palette. This is a Sunset Stripped by Too Faced. And as always, I'm always blown away by how beautiful the mattes are. They blend out beautifully. And the shimmers in here are super buttery and foily, and you can use them as glitter toppers, or you can get them wet and make a super metallic eyeshadow. I love this. I have many tutorials using this. It's a newer product. It's supposed to be LA themed, and it has a scent to it. It's like a floral scent. But yeah, this is a really, really good palette. I think you could use this for dramatic looks every day. I love to dabble in this for every day on this side and then dramatic looks on this side, and it's a really good palette. A little bit on the pricey side for what it is. It's about $52, but I love this palette. Next is another affordable palette. This is the Bare Necessities palette by Colourpop. You get all the names here on the back. And this is another well-loved palette. It's a warm, neutral palette. Lots of roses. And I just love the shimmers in here. They're super metallic and pigmented and buttery, and the mattes are pigmented. I have several tutorials using this palette, and I just love it. It's so perfect. It's definitely a palette I take with me on trips because I know whatever look I want to do, I can create with this palette. There's pops of colors with the roses. But yeah, it's such a really good neutral palette to have. You get so many shades. 36 shades? 36 shades, and I want to say that this is about $30. So affordable and just a really good palette to have. Next is another version of that palette. It's called the Stone Cold Fox palette by Colourpop. Again, you get every single eyeshadow shade here on the back, and this is the front. I love this palette because my fiance, she really likes cool tone looks, and so when I do her makeup, I know if I pack this palette, I'll be able to give her any kind of cool tone look she wants. There's lots of good neutrals in here, and actually there's some warms in here, a nice row of darker eyeshadows. Again, the pigmentation is amazing, the blendability is incredible, and the shimmers are buttery and beautiful, and this is a really good palette. Actually, look at this palette. I want to create a look with this palette because again, it's just such a good palette. It just like inspires me. There's so many shades. Again, super affordable. 36 eyeshadows for about 30 something dollars. Again, I'm gonna have everything linked below. But such a good palette. I love this palette, and my fiance loves this palette as well. So another really good palette is the Too Faced Natural Lust palette. This is actually one of the first palettes I used on my channel to create tutorials. You get a lot of really good pink neutral shades, some pops of color, like the Peacock is a really good pop of color, and so is Pinned Down. They're just really fun, but like wearable pops of color. And just lots of rosy shades. The neutrals in here are amazing. The foil metallics, everything. You get a really good matte black eyeshadow, and you also get a really nice light highlighting. It's just a really good palette. Love this palette. I have plenty of tutorials using it. Comes with a huge mirror, and Natural Lust by Too Faced is a really, really good palette. Next, this is a little pricier of a palette. This is the Patrick Ta Major Dimensions palette. It's this really beautiful rose gold packaging. I was one of those people that was obsessed with rose gold. But anyway, so you get really pretty neutrals. These shimmers are super beautiful glittery shimmers, like they're stunning. I actually am wearing these two on my eyes right now. They're very glittery, shimmery colors. And these neutrals are really pretty too for making a matte eyeshadow look. I have many tutorials using this palette. And these are creams. I actually never used the creams, but they're cream eyeshadows. I should probably use those, but I have not. And it comes with a mirror, and it's just a really good neutral palette. This is a really good bridal palette. There's a lot of warmth in this palette. So if you're not into warm tones, this probably isn't for you. But this is a really good eyeshadow palette. I love it. I usually end up taking this with another palette and just mixing it with another one. But it's a really, really good palette. So actually it's a lot of expensive. It's $72 I want to say, but I love it. No regrets. And I am clearly a makeup hoarder. I am obsessed with buying eyeshadow palettes. And I definitely am getting my use out of this palette, but it is on the pricey side. But it is Patrick Ta and it's phenomenal. Next is Too Faced Born This Way. This is the other palette that Sunset Stripped is like the cousin of. And this is a beautiful neutral palette. This palette is stunning. This is a really good palette for someone who can afford a higher end eyeshadow palette, but they like neutrals and they don't wear that much makeup, because you can create so many looks with this palette. You get really beautiful shimmers in here that you can make glitter toppers, or you can get them wet and make them really metallic. The mattes in here are super buttery. And for how much I use this palette, I haven't hit pan on any of the shades, which is really shocking because I use this a lot. I'm talking really fast, but I really like this palette. And you get like the, you know, like the pinky roses, and you get like the warm tones, and it's really good matte, chocolatey shades. This is just a really good palette. This one's $48. It's cheaper than the Sunset Strip palette, but it also came out first. You get a mirror, Too Faced Born This Way Natural Nudes palette. I have so many tutorials using this palette because it's just so up my alley. This is exactly what I love. I just love neutrals like this where I have my mattes. I have a whole entire shade range of dark and light. I have all the metallics I want. Like, this is the perfect eyeshadow palette. Of course, how could I not mention the Jaclyn Hill palette by Morphe, the 35 Dream Colors, the Jaclyn Hill Morphe palette. This palette is stunning. Mine is several years old and I don't care because it still has amazing pigmentation and blendability. Clearly, I love that shade. Again, it's so funny looking at this palette, I'm like inspired. I love this palette. I have a few tutorials using this, but like these shades right here, these pops of colors are beautiful and I just love it. Like, there's so many looks I created with this palette and I was just like in love. And like even these two darker green shades, like everything about it is just beautiful, blends out amazingly. This is definitely an old palette. I think I want to say I heard somewhere that this is like one of the most sold eyeshadow palettes, but it's just amazing quality, beautiful color selection. I mean, I'm sure everyone's heard of this palette, but it's definitely my top 10 because I just love it so much. But yeah, actually I haven't touched this in a while, but really good palette and it's stunning, and Jaclyn Hill did an amazing job. Next, this is almost a newer palette. This is the Tarte Full Bloom palette. I don't even own the Tarte Bloom palette, and that's one of the other like most sold eyeshadow palettes. So I really need to get that. I'm gonna wait till it goes on sale, but I don't even own that, and that's like shocker because that's a really beautiful, perfect palette. But this is the Tartelette Full Bloom, bigger version of that palette. It's like a remix, and this also was like $52, but you get all these beautiful, stunning shades. I love this palette. This is one I took with me to do makeup for a wedding I went to this weekend, and I love it. Like, the perfect everyday neutral transition shade is Delicate. You get this beautiful vanilla sun-kissed shade. You get these like rosy, goldy shades, and you get some purples, and you have these darker shades that you can do smoky eyes with, and it's just a stunning, blendable, beautiful palette. You get a huge mirror, and it's $52, and you get 28 eyeshadows. It's a beautiful palette. I love this palette. It is stunning, and I highly recommend it. It is a limited edition palette, so I hope it's still up and out there, but it's a really good palette. Tarte killed it. And I have so many tutorials using this palette. And next, this is a palette that's no longer available, so I waited last to talk about it, but it is the Mario Kim palette, The Artist and the Muse. This is the only eyeshadow palette I own by KKW, and I actually got this on sale when her website was closing. But I love Mario, and I was like, I gotta get this palette because I love Mario and I love his blushes and everything he's coming out with right now. But this is the beautiful eyeshadow palette. These neutral shades right here are stunning. They're perfect and I love them. Like, this is a perfect transition shade. It looks really light, but it's beautiful. Of all these shades, I think this palette's absolutely stunning. Sadly, it's no longer available. Maybe you can find it on like eBay or something. But yeah, it's a really pretty palette. I don't really touch some of these shades, but this whole vibe right here, like these shades, and it's funny because I try and find similar shades in my collection to these three, and they're not like, they look simple, like you could find something like them, but this brown's like really unique because it's like a mixture between a cool and a warm, and it's just like when it's on the eye it can like darken up or be a warm tone. I don't know, but they're beautiful and stunning, and Kim and Mario really killed it with this palette. I love it. And I'm happy I got it on sale on her website when they were closing, but it is a really good palette. Sadly, no longer available, and neither is her makeup line because it's getting revamped, but love this palette. Alright guys, that completes my video of top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes.